everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be doing something that I've wanted somebody else to do for a while, but nobody did, so I thought, why not do it myself? And that's a full-on explanation of an iceberg about K-pop Nugudom. A lot of the structure and formatting of this video is inspired by other people on KTube who have made similar videos like Jihoon's Carrot, Midnight Theories, and Teriyaki Kamikaze, so if you're interested in other videos about similar topics in K-pop, I definitely recommend their channels. So for those of you who don't know what an internet iceberg is, it's basically taking the idea of a real iceberg where you can see a very small portion of it at the surface of the water, but the vast majority of the iceberg's matter is below the water where you can't see it. So here, we're going to be taking that concept and applying it to Nugu K-pop groups. So in K-pop, the term Nugu basically means underrated and unpopular, and for the different tiers of this iceberg, we're going to be starting at the top, which includes groups that people are going to be familiar with even if they're just in K-pop for like a month, and tier by tier going down into groups with less and less recognition, ending with groups that might not even have 1,000 fans. Here is the finished product of the iceberg that we're going to be referring to throughout this video. I actually made this one myself with the help of my friends Axistan, Chromally, and vixxo on YouTube, so shout out to them. Also, just one last disclaimer before we start. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me as to where I place certain groups on this iceberg, so I just want you to know that me placing a group on a specific tier isn't me trying to insult the group. I have explanations as to why I put each group in the tier that they're in, and I hope that when we get to each group that you can understand where I'm coming from, even if you disagree. Thanks so much for watching my video, and without further ado, let's get started by jumping into the first tier. So the very top tier is the not Nugu tier, which includes groups and solo artists that I don't see people call Nugu all the time, but sometimes I do, and whenever I see it, I can't help but roll my eyes. This tier includes groups that all have a very solid fan base, lots of fans and non-fans alike who stream their music worldwide, tons of physical album sales for each new comeback, and millions upon millions of views on their music videos. The artists that I chose to include as examples for this tier are Astro, AB6, Woods, Everglow, Treasure, Dreamcatcher, and Fromis9. Because while none of these groups are in the top 5 or even in the top 10 most popular ones that are active right now, they all still have very solid and stable careers that aren't going away anytime soon. You have Fromis9, who are now associated with the most prosperous company within K-pop, aka HYBE, recently not only getting their first win on the show, but also getting their first win on a major music program, aka Show Champion, selling over 140,000 physical copies of their most recent mini-album. There's just no argument for them being Nugu anymore. Then we have Everglow, who have almost 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify alone, so you can just imagine how many people listen to them on other streaming platforms. They have over 50 million views on their most recent music video, and they get brought up in the discussion whenever people talk about the best 4th gen girl group debut. They have a really solidified fan base with people having social media accounts dedicated to them with like thousands and thousands of followers, and while they might not be the most popular group domestically in Korea, their international fan base makes it so that they are not Nugu. Then we have Astro, who people still call underrated because they like to push the narrative that the whole group is just Unwoo and friends, saying that he's the only reason that the group has a fan base, charts digitally, and has huge album sales. But just to give a personal example, I knew about Moonbin before I knew about Unwoo, and while Fantagio doesn't do a great job at promoting their other groups, they do a fantastic job with Astro. At this point, each member is debuted as either a soloist or in a subunit, and these subunit and solo projects have really helped round out the attention that each member gets within the group as a whole. So like, they're not Nugu and they're not famous because of one person. Sorry for like going a little bit too far with that explanation, but I was a little bit passionate. So now we have Treasure, and why people ever called a big 3 group Nugu is beyond me. If you're from the same company as Big Bang and Blackpink, you just can't be Nugu by default. That's just how things work. Their first music video has over 100 million views, and their first album sold over 250,000 copies, so like, they're not Nugu. I don't know why K-pop stans ever tried to push that agenda. Next we have Woods, aka the only soloist that I'm going to be talking about in this video. He rises in popularity with every new comeback, and I see almost every single person I know on K-pop YouTube talk about them in their videos. He has one of the most dedicated online followings that I've ever seen, and he has a good grasp on the Korean general public, always showing up on radio shows, and his last single hit number 35 on the GAON weekly digital download chart. Next we have Dreamcatcher, who don't have much of a domestic fandom at all, but make up for it with the massive number of international fans that they have, selling over 100,000 copies with their last 3 mini albums, and having over 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. They've also captured a really niche market within the gaming community. Like, even my brother, who has probably never watched a K-pop music video in his life, listens to Dreamcatcher, which was a shell shock to me, to say the least. And no other group has been able to do this in the way that Dreamcatcher has, so I would say that they are not Nugu at all. Finally, we have AB6, who I would never call Nugu right now, but their popularity has been on the decline recently. In the past, they've almost sold 200,000 copies of their physical albums, but but their sales have been steadily on the decline, and their most recent mini didn't even hit 60k, and instead of gaining popularity as the years go on, AB6IX have seemed to become more and more forgotten with each new comeback. So while they're not Nugu right now, I think it's possible that they might be demoted back into Nugudom soon, which is the exact opposite of what happened to the groups in our next tier, so let's move right on. Our next tier is the graduated Nugudom tier, which essentially means that all of these groups were Nugu at some point, but with the release of a hit song or the appearance on a show, they were able to grab a really solid fanbase that made it so they didn't have to worry about fading back into obscurity. And the groups that I've chosen as examples of this are CLC, Loona, The Boys, VIVIZ, Golden Child, Momoland, and Brave Girls. So with CLC, even though the release of Hobgoblin basically killed all of their chances of charting within Korea, their switch to Girl Crush really did capture the international audience. Although their dedicated fanbase was never huge and their album sales were never that good, even the casual K-pop stans know about CLC, and almost every single song that they put out after Hobgoblin did really well internationally. They were never really a huge threat to other third-gen girl groups, but considering the huge amount of people who know about CLC, I would never consider them Nugu, at least not anymore. Now for Loona, I don't think I really need to give much of an explanation, but just to put things into perspective, the first album that the group ever put out, which was Heejin Solo, sold 657 copies, and their most recent mini album sold 135,000. This, coupled with the group's upcoming appearance on Queendom 2, coupled with just the amount of presence that they have online, Loona are not Nugu and they never will be again. Next up is The Boys, who were able to skyrocket into popularity with the release of songs such as Dance Dance Dance, No Air, Reveal, and their appearance on Kingdom, as well as the fact that they won Road to Kingdom. They have such a huge grasp on the domestic market, with their last two singles hitting number 11 and number 6 on the GAON Weekly digital charts, and even individual members are being invited to appear on shows such as Knowing Bros and Running Man, which are so popular in Korea. Next up is VIVIZ, who were absolutely Nugu at the beginning of their career, but after two of the members appeared on the show Produce X101 and one of the members even made it into the final lineup of X1, it made people interested in the entire group, and even though they had a comeback while the member in X1 was not promoting with them, they quite literally quadrupled their previous album sales, going from 16,000 to 74,000. The single for that mini album, Nostalgic Night, stays as one of their most iconic even though their member Sungwoo was not in it, and with Nostalgic Night they were actually able to get their first music show win. Having a similar trajectory to VIVIZ despite not sending any of their members to Produce, Golden Child were able to secure a fanbase and their first win with the release of their song Wannabe, putting them in the attention of millions of K-pop fans and solidifying them as a stable third-gen boy group. Now we have Momoland, who have a song that is known by at least 99% of all K-pop fans worldwide, and even though they haven't been able to match the success of Boom Boom, they've never been forgotten as a group. A majority of people still know who Momoland are, and they still tune into their comebacks even if they don't buy the album. And although their popularity has sadly diminished in the recent years, they're not Nugu simply due to the amount of people who know their name. Now we have Brave Girls, who are the biggest example of graduated Nugudom that have ever existed, going from being on the brink of disbandment to having a chart reversal where one of their songs dominated the charts for months on end. Brave Girls have gone from being basically unknown to being absolute superstars who are so successful. Make sure to tune into their comeback on the 14th. And now that we've gotten all of the non-Nugus out of the way, let's dive right into the next tier and get into the content that you've all been waiting for. So our third tier is they have one hit song or two, meaning that similarly to Momoland or Golden Child, these groups were able to release songs that got a lot of attention that didn't necessarily translate into a big fan base or even just a large casual following. For most of the people on this list, I feel like people know the song, but they don't necessarily know the group. And that's what differentiates the third tier from the second tier, because these groups are still probably Nugu. Even if they have a song that's not Nugu, the group still kind of is. And the examples that I have for this tier are Meki, Hotshot, April, 24K, Crayon Pop, Ace, ONF, and VAV. And for all of these groups, there's not much commentary to do on them because the tier is pretty self-explanatory as to why they're all there. You know, Meki have Picky Picky and Cool, Ace have Undercover and Savage, Crayon Pop has Bar Bar Bar, April has Oh My Mistake and La La Li La La, VAV has Senorita, ONF has Beautiful Beautiful, which did actually gain them a domestic fan base, but basically nobody knows who they are internationally. Hotshot has Jelly, 24K has Superfly, and besides what I said in the introduction for this tier, there's not much to say about each of these groups individually, they just have their one or two hit songs. I think a lot of people will argue that Ace belong in the graduated Nugudom tier, and I somewhat agree, but after the release of Undercover and Savage, their fandom never really came back, and their two comebacks in 2021 were not nearly as successful. I would also like to say I think ONF, VAV, and Meki deserve a lot more love. The two besides Meki are currently in their enlistment period, but I hope when they do come back, they can come back with even more support than they left with. And for Meki, please support them now so their company does not give up on them. I know Cool and Picky Picky are their most popular songs, but their other songs are honestly so great, and if you haven't already, at the very least check out their other title tracks. I promise you won't be disappointed. And with my little plea out of the way, I guess we should move on to the next tier. For the fourth tier, we have the almost not Nugu tier, and there are a lot of different reasons that I put the groups that I did within this tier, but the basic criteria I have for all of them is that I feel like they could escape Nugudom pretty soon. I think a lot of people know of these groups, but they haven't really gotten interested enough to actually go and check them out, or maybe they have large fan bases, but the average K-pop stan doesn't know who they are. So the groups that I decided to put in this tier are Billlie, P1 Harmony, Lucy, Cherry Bullet, Teen Top, Verivery, and MCND. And as for the individual explanations, for Billlie, I think they're the next one to escape Nugudom. Definitely. Lots of people were saying they might be another Daya or Gugudon situation where people only know one member, and that member was Sean from Girls Planet 999. But recently, all of the other members are domestic charting, and the overall amount of hardcore fans as well as just casual listeners of the group increasing daily. More and more people like Billlie, and more people like their entire discography as they check out their music, and I only see their popularity skyrocketing within the next year or two. I personally am a hardcore Billlie fan. They're actually one of my ultimate groups, and I cannot wait to see which member goes viral next. Then we have P1 Harmony, who are pretty well known as a group, but not many people check out their music. They definitely have a huge fandom where all of them listen to their songs on the daily, but the amount of people who tune into their comebacks kind of pales to the amount of people who follow them on TikTok. I was looking at their page on TikTok and they have over 2 million followers and they have dozens of videos that have over 2 million views, but on Spotify, one of the most popular music streaming platforms, they only have 800,000 monthly listeners. And on YouTube, the music video for their first English song, which I will admit is an English version of one of their Korean title tracks, it only got 80,000 views in over a day, which is less than any of their TikToks would get. This group just needs one song that really resonates with K-pop fans, and once they release something like that, then they're definitely out of Nugudom. But for now, they're mostly just known as those funny idols on TikTok, and even though I like their music and I stan this group, it's very obvious that a lot of others don't. Then we have Lucy, who are a K-band that were insanely Nugu when they debuted, but they've been steadily rising in popularity. They went from their first mini album having literally 2,000 sales to their most recent one having 27,000, and that's because they're actually gaining a really large fan base, at least domestically. The members of Lucy are constantly appearing on variety shows or radio gigs, and proof that they're becoming popular in Korea is how a lot of different K-pop idols are covering their songs. With the way they're consistently getting more and more famous, I know that Lucy's gonna break out of Nugudom eventually, and at this point it's just a matter of time. And then there's Cherry Bullet, who sadly seem to have lost some momentum since 3 of the members appeared on Girls Planet 999 after the release of their comeback Love in Space. There was definitely a lot of hype around this comeback because a lot of people were interested in the group after Girls Planet, but after Love in Space came out in its entirety, I think a lot of people were disappointed in the final song. This was their chance to really break out of Nugudom, but FNC Entertainment kind of fumbled the ball by giving them a less than perfect title track. So instead of being in the graduated Nugudom tier where they deserve to be, sadly they're just back in the almost not Nugu tier. Then we have a second gen group, Teen Top, who are definitely not Nugu at one point, but they've sort of fallen back into Nugudom as of late. In the past, they had several songs with over 1 million digital downloads, but recently during their enlistment period, the group has lost a lot of their support. The members have occasional variety appearances where people seem to recognize them, but I don't think too many people care about Teen Top as a full group anymore. Then we have Verivery, who have a very consistent fan base that supports them throughout each of their comebacks. With each new release, their physical album sales increase, and they gained a lot of American fans with their American tour last year. The one thing that I think is holding this group back is that they haven't really had a breakout song yet. All of their comebacks have done relatively well, but none of them have done noticeably better than the others, at least to a large degree. They have a large fan base, but their songs don't really seem to grab attention of non-fans. But if they do ever release something that gains mainstream attention, then they'll have no problem climbing out of Nugudom, although that hasn't quite happened yet. And finally, in this tier, we have my favorite group of all time, MCND. And besides the fact that their company doesn't promote them as well as they could, the main reason that MCND still lie in the upper tiers of Nugudom is because they haven't really grasped a solid fan base yet. Despite a majority of their music videos having over 10 million views, MCND haven't really turned a lot of the people who casually listen to their music into diehard fans. They have decent album sales, but they've never really seen a drastic increase, and I think it's just because people don't really care to look deeper into the group. But as we all know, I'm here to increase MCND's worldwide fame on YouTube, and one by one, I'm turning all of my subscribers into full-time gems. It's gonna happen. Trust me. And that concludes the 4th tier. So for the first 4 tiers, people have definitely made arguments that none of the groups that I've talked about so far are Nugu, but for 5. So tier number 5 is the people know they exist tier. And this one is also pretty self-explanatory. Groups in this tier are groups that like half of K-pop stans have probably heard of, maybe? And while they might know the names of these groups, they might not know what their music sounds like or what the group is all about. They're still on the higher end of Nugudom because people might know who they are, but for boy groups they might have a solid fan base, but like literally nobody knows them outside of that. And for the girl groups, they might have a solid amount of casual listeners, but not a lot of people will like know the names of all of the members, and they definitely aren't buying the albums. So the groups that I'm putting in this tier are PIXY, WOA, EPEX, ELRIS, GWSN, Bandit, Omega X, Hello Venus, and 9 Muses. And I guess let's just start off with PIXY. So people know about PIXY because the fans that they do have are very vocal about how good their discography is, and they're also able to stand out from other Nugu girl groups because of their very intense concept. What I think is holding them back though is that their concept is catering to a market that is already sort of monopolized by Dreamcatcher. Just like Dreamcatcher, PIXY's whole image is sort of horror adjacent, and while the two groups definitely have a lot of shared fans, most Dreamcatcher fans who know of PIXY have just stuck into Dreamcatcher because they've known them for longer. Then we have WOA, who are one of the very few Nugu girl groups who have stuck to their cute image throughout their entire life, and went somewhat viral for their song Bad Girl. But ever since that era where they promoted Bad Girl and I Don't Miss You, with their future comebacks, the group hasn't really been able to capture the same amount of attention. Then we have EPEX, who had a very divisive debut song, with lots of people saying that it's like one of the worst things they've heard in years, but personally I didn't mind it. Now EPEX actually have a pretty decent amount of fans, but besides them, I don't think many other people know about them. People have been very quick to label them as just another 4th gen Nugu boy group, and there's not a lot of interest surrounding the group as a whole. Then we have ELRIS, who actually had a really decent string of successful title tracks in Jackpot, Pow Pow, and Summer Dream, but unfortunately during the last couple, or last few years at this point, the group had to take a long hiatus, and since then they've lost most of, if not all of the momentum that they did have. Following up ELRIS, we have one of the most undeserved placements in GWSN. GWSN have some of the best music that I've ever heard, but unfortunately their company keeps screwing them over. Instead of having 2 or 3 comebacks each year like a regular group should, GWSN have had 1 for the past 2. And to say that the group needs more promotion in other areas is an understatement. Because of this lack of promotion, most of their music videos have less than 5 million views, and a lot of those are ads, and their album sales aren't too great either. And I just want to say that if you're looking for a new girl group to check out, definitely check out GWSN. Then we have Bandit, who kind of are in a similar situation, but they haven't had a comeback in almost 2 years. Their company invested a lot of money into them, which you can really see by the way that their music videos look so expensive, especially Jungle, but it seems like the investments didn't bring much of a profit to them, so they haven't been able to resume activities or have any comebacks since. Then we have Omega X, who had a lot of attention on them during their debut. They're a group that consists of members of previously disbanded groups or maybe survival show trainees, but instead of increasing, their level of success has kind of stagnated since debut. They've solidified more of a fan base, but since their level of success is still the same, it means that a lot of people who just casually followed them have stopped doing so, and they haven't had much of a quote-unquote hit song yet. Since all of the members have somewhat of a reputation before they joined Omega X, the people know of the group, but they're not necessarily a staple name in 4th gen yet. So after that we have Hello Venus, who are a disbanded group that were under Fantagio, same company as Astro and Meki, and I put them in the people know they exist category because people know they exist. When they were active, they were never truly mainstream, but people acknowledged them if they were into K-pop, so newer K-pop stans have a vague idea of who Hello Venus are, but they probably don't know many songs by them, if any, and they definitely can't name any of the members. However, personally, I definitely think you should stream Mysterious. That's like one of the best songs I've ever heard. And then finally for this tier, similarly to Hello Venus, we have 9 Muses, who basically have the exact same reputation as Hello Venus, especially with newer fans, and stream drama. So that wraps up the first 5 tiers, and that actually wraps up this video. I knew that this video was going to be a lot of work, but I didn't realize how much work it's going to be, and I thought that this was going to be like a 20-minute long video, maybe max. But right now you can see we're about at the 20-minute mark, and we're only halfway through, so I'm going to split this video into 2 different parts, and within a week or 2 I'll upload the second part, including the other 5 tiers within this iceberg. One last thing before I do my outro is that I didn't include every single group that I think belongs in each of these different tiers in this video, because if I did that, then this video would be so long, and I'm not up for that challenge. Like, do you guys understand how many Nugu groups and semi-Nugu groups exist within K-pop? There's like way too many to count. It's in the thousands, honestly. So instead of me doing all of that work, let me know what other groups you think belonged in each of these categories or tiers in the comment section below. Alright, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support. And if you want to be there when part 2 comes out, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a thumbs up. I actually put so much work into this video, like I'm exhausted right now. And any support that you choose to give me would be very greatly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching my video, and without further ado, I'll see you in the next one, and I'll see you in part 2. Alright, peace out.